Do you secretly hate buttercream frosting? I don't get it because I'm one of those people that would like tackle you for the corner piece, you know, the one with all the rosettes on it. But my friend Karen told me that she hates buttercream, like scrapes it off every slice that she gets. And then I started to notice this more and more. And I think, I wonder if this is a trend. Maybe a lot of people don't like buttercream. And I realized maybe we need some alternatives. So that's what today is about. I'm going to share with you three alternatives to buttercream frosting that's a little bit less sweet and of maybe even a better texture. So first, let's talk about what buttercream is, because it's basically butter that's been whipped, and you add powdered sugar, and then probably a little bit of milk just to get the consistency just right, and then whatever flavorings that you want. Like maybe you might add vanilla and maybe some color, whatever. I mean, what sounds so bad about that? It sounds actually very good, doesn't it? But actually, there is a problem with buttercream, and that is because, well, let's think about it this way. Sugar is water soluble, but there's only butter in in a buttercream frosting. There's no water to dissolve the sugar into. And so what happens is you end up adding sometimes 3 to 4 cups of powdered sugar for one batch of buttercream frosting. And as a result, it can get kind of gritty. So not only is the sugar not dissolving and therefore it's gotten kind of gritty, but it's also just so sweet, like sickeningly sweet. And as much as I love buttercream frosting, I have noticed as I'm getting older that my body doesn't tolerate all that sugar just as much as it used to. So I have to maybe slightly shifting over to the group that maybe would like cut a little, maybe half of this off. So anyway, I wanted to show you some wonderful alternatives to buttercream frosting. And today I'm going to share with you three, and I'm also going to talk to you later about the one that won my friend over. In fact, she loved it so much, and she's not even vegan. All of these are vegan, but she's not even vegan, and she loved this one so much that she was a convert. So I want to share with you which one that is at the end. So let's go over some of the options that we're going to be talking about today. The first one is this ermine frosting. Now I made this ahead of time. Do you say Ermine or Ermine? I say Ermine, but I have a feeling it's probably Ermine. I just think that sounds too much like vermin, so that's why I think Ermine sounds better. Anyway, this is also referred to as boiled flour frosting. I'm sure you've heard of it before. I actually have a video on this, and I'm going to show. I'll link to that video so you can see how to make this step by step. I'm going to talk to you about this a little bit more in a minute. I also have whipped cream, believe it or not. That's my option number 2. I'm going to talk with you more about that also in a minute. And then I have this whipped ganache, and we're going to make this one together. Okay, let's go back to the ermine frosting, however we're going to say that. This ermine frosting is basically referred to as boiled flour frosting, and what you do is you take a 1/3 cup of flour, you mix it in a saucepan with 1 cup of sugar. So if you think about regular buttercream frosting having 4 cups of powdered sugar, 1 cup of granulated sugar is not that bad. So this is still sweet, but it's not that sweet. And so you mix that in a saucepan, and I actually add a little pinch of salt to that too, and add a cup of soy milk, and then cook that until it gets nice and thick. And you'll know it's ready when you can run a spoon along the spatula and it leaves a trail. So that's what I kind of go for. I'm stirring it, it's getting thicker. And then what I do is I let it cool, transfer it to a bowl, cover it, and refrigerate it until it chills. Then what we'll do is we're going to whip a cup of butter till it's light and airy, and then slowly add that boiled flour mixture, that thick, it's kind of a paste at this point because it's all chilled down, it's cool. So we're going to transfer that into the whipped butter, and this is what you're left with. And this texture is very similar to, well, I use it on my vegan Suzy Q cake. So if you've ever had a Suzy Q pastry, you know, like those nice little snack cakes from your childhood, this is kind of like the filling that's in that. And I'm going to put this on I made just some plain cupcakes, and you can put a nice dollop on here. This will actually is very stable, so you can actually add it to a pastry bag and use it. You know, it will hold its shape as well. It holds its shape between layers of cake. So that's what I like to do. I make two round chocolate cakes. I put this in the center and this on the top, and it's called my Suzy Q cake. I just love it. I'm going to do a taste test for this one in just a second, but for now, that's what we've got. Let's move on to vegan whipped cream, because right here I've got this store-bought version. I want you to know this can be simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. So you can go to the store and get this. I get this at my local grocery store. For sure, you're going to find it at any health food store. But I also wanted you to know that you can use a can of coconut cream. The trick is it needs to be full fat. And I like to use the coconut cream because it's got the highest content of fat in it. In fact, I always look at the ingredients. This one says it has 13 grams total fat. That's good. That's what you want, 12 to 13 or even higher grams of total fat. And then you put this in the refrigerator and let it sit overnight. And what will happen is that fat will solidify. So you spoon out that fat, you put it in. I always have my the bowl I'm going to whip it in. I have it chilled. And sometimes I'll even, have the beater chilled as well, and just whip that up. And after a few minutes, you're going to have a nice, wonderful whipped cream. It's a nice texture. It goes perfectly on cakes. I also wanted to share with you, there is this, what is this? Califia Farms. I buy this at the grocery store. It's heavy whip. Another one that I really like is Country Crock, has a plant-based whipping cream. Oh, the texture is just wonderful. You just pour whichever one that you're using. You just pour this again in a mixing bowl. You use your your whipping attachment, and whip this up nice and light. My favorite cakes to put this on, as I'm going to tell you my favorite cakes, I'm also going to talk to you. I'm going to show you how I do this. Um, my favorite cakes to put this on are typically like strawberry cake, or could you imagine a pineapple cake is really delicious with whipped cream on top. Obviously, a chocolate cake is really good. Look at that. What I love about whipped cream is it's pretty low in sugar. In fact, I think adding a little bit of powdered sugar is a great idea because that will help stabilize it and keep that whipped texture there longer. But even on this package, when it talks about whipping, and right here on the back, it talks about how to whip it. It suggests that you can add like a tablespoon or two of sugar. We're talking about 2 tablespoons of sugar versus 4 cups. So that is really, really good. I love this. So I'm going to let that sit, and we're going to move on to whipped ganache. I'm so excited about this one because what this is basically coconut cream combined with a cup and a half of chocolate chips. So I did a cup and a half of dark chocolate chips, and I used coconut cream. What I did is I refrigerated a can overnight. I scooped out the fat to equal about a cup, melted that. Do you want it warm, but really warm, but not hot, not boiling for sure. And then you pour that over the chocolate chips, and you let that set. You stir it up, and then you just let that sit out. And this is what it looks like after it's sat for quite a while. You can see it's very thick. And we're going to whip that. Now, I want you to know, you don't actually have to whip this. You could put this on a cake, and this is just delicious. We do it all the time. I think there are times, Sean is in that camp of group of people who don't like a ton of frosting on it. And so on his cake, he likes his cake, but not a lot of frosting. And so when I do this, basically ganache, he loves it because it's just like it just adds so much to a cake, but it's really not overly sweet. Because if you think about it, the only sugar in here is from the chocolate chips, and the chocolate chips are just semi-sweet, so it's nowhere close to 3 to 4 cups of powdered sugar. Okay, so bear with me for a minute. I'm just going to whip this up. You can see just immediately we're aerating that chocolate. It doesn't take long. You can see the color starts to change. That's an indication that it's becoming aerated. Oh God, I love this. Now I'm gonna stop here, and I'm just gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl because you can see there's darker parts that are not getting whipped. But you can see that already. It's just beautiful. Doesn't that look just like a chocolate buttercream frosting? It's just beautiful. Okay, just another minute or two. Oh, I love it. That's really plenty. Look at that. Look at that. I'm gonna try it. I might have to do a little taste test of this. Perfect. Now, you can overwhip ganache, so you want to be careful not to go too long on this. If you do overwhip it, you'll notice that it maybe looks like it's starting to break. Maybe it's looking like it's starting to get kind of gritty. What you can do is just simply melt it back down and start over. That usually works. You can add a little bit more coconut cream to it. In fact, this is very pipeable. I have added this as decorations. I put this in a piping bag and added the 1 millimeter star tip and added decorations on top of the cake. And this is stable. It will stay very stable and it's delicious. But if it's too thick, let's say you did this and you find that it's too thick to even pipe, then you can add another tablespoon or so of the cream. You just want to be careful because you can easily get it too, where it's out of control. But this is going to be great. This is going to be delicious. I'm going to show you this on a cupcake because everything has to be on a cupcake today. That is just the rule. And again, you can be pretty generous with your dollop here because this is just basically chocolate chips with a little bit of coconut cream. So now, if I had some sprinkles sitting out, I would definitely add some sprinkles, but I don't have any, but that's okay. This is pretty good. And I think now we're going to be ready for the taste test. Although I did want to point out before we move on to that is, leave that sitting out. You might be wondering which ones of these are gluten-free. I wanted to answer that question because obviously the chocolate chips are gluten-free. The whipped cream is gluten-free. But when we look at this Ermine frosting, let me just set these right next to each other so you can get that, honey. This Ermine frosting is not gluten-free because it's made with flour. But there are some options to make this gluten-free. You can obviously use gluten-free flour. That will work, but I would make sure you use a high quality like baking flour so that it will thicken. I've even seen some recipes where you can use a paste of cornstarch combined with boiled apples, believe it or not. That sounds crazy, I know, but it works. So yeah, there's options to make any of these gluten-free. I'm just curious, like you might be asking like what kind of cakes you can put these on. These are all fairly stable, except for the whipped cream. You obviously wouldn't want to put the whipped cream between layers of a cake, but because the heaviness of the cake will probably push the whipped cream out, but it's still, maybe if you were using one, this is a heavier, and if you stabilized it with some sugar, this is probably going to work. But those are some common questions that people might have. And so now let's move on to the taste test. So I love this Ermine frosting. Like I say, I typically would have this on a chocolate cake, but this is just just a very simple yellow cupcake. So let's give it a try. Mm. Mm. I'm a sucker for creamy toppings like this one. And this one just hits all the right notes. It just reminds me of those days. Like, I mean, we didn't have CQ cakes all the time or anything, but that creamy filling inside those, ding dongs or cupcakes or things like that. That's what this tastes like. It's a great texture. And let's move on to the whipped cream because I think this one is an interesting choice. I could see adding a maraschino cherry on top of this one, or maybe a drizzle of some chocolate sauce would be really nice. That would look gorgeous. Let's try this. Mm, mm. Surprisingly, that's very good. I mean, you would think whipped cream is very basic. It's not super sweet, but because it's chilled, it adds a nice flavor and texture. It's soft and it just kind of melts in your mouth. It's delicious. Here, I'll turn these so you can see them. And then for the showstopper, this is the whipped ganache. And just so you know, this is the one that my friend chose. This is the one that my friend Karen said she loved. When I brought her this cake for her birthday, she was so shocked to learn that this big fluff of chocolate on top was not a chocolate buttercream. In fact, it was just a whipped ganache. And she was just tickled pink about it. So let's give this a try. I'm going to go over here. Mmm. Mmm. The chocolate is so rich and delicious. and creamy and smooth. Oh my goodness. And you just feel good about knowing that, you have all this frosting on here, but it's not overly sweet. It's just rich tasting. That's what I'm left with. This flavor, this chocolate flavor that tastes rich and delicious. Oh, it's perfect. I would love to know if you have an alternative to buttercream that you go to every time, because these are just three. There are so many to choose from. These are three that I really love. I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. And if you like today's recipe and you want to see more, because I have more I could share with you, I'm just curious. Do you want to see more buttercream alternatives? And if you do, leave a heart in the comments below, and then I'll know that that is you saying, please give me more. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a really good time. I loved sharing with you these wonderful frosting options. I just think it's so amazing to know that not only are these vegan, many of them are gluten-free, and they're alternatives to buttercream that taste just as sweet and just as delicious and will just leave you just as satisfied. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more recipes coming your way every week.